Another LSU Tiger hits the portal on Tuesday afternoon. And while the spring transfer portal period can be met with a lot of feelings of uneasiness or anxiety for the upcoming season, I'm going to tell you why, as an LSU fan, you should not feel anxious or uneasy about these players hitting the transfer portal.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, y'all? Welcome into Locked On LSU. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, on your preferred podcast platform and on YouTube. Happy Tuesday. Before we get into it, I got to let y'all know that today's edition of Locked On LSU is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. So the spring transfer portal is alive and well, and maybe at this point you're sick of me talking about it, but there's new news every single day. Either players elsewhere that hit the portal that could be solid additions for LSU, and on the other hand, LSU players that have decided to enter the transfer portal. And just a reminder, the transfer portal is open until April 30th. So one more week until next Tuesday. Players can enter their names in the transfer portal. I know you probably know, but as a refresher, you need to enter the portal by next Tuesday. You don't have to decide where you're going by next Tuesday, which I think is good news for LSU fans. If the defensive tackle situation is still kind of up in the air, by April 30th, you can decide to go wherever you want, whenever you want. You just have to hit the portal by next Tuesday, April 30th. But like I mentioned, new portal news. It was reported on Tuesday afternoon that LSU running back John Emery Jr. will enter the transfer portal. So John Emery was one of the most highly recruited players in that 2019 class, was a top 3 player in the state of Louisiana. He was right up there with Derek Stingley Jr. in that 2019 recruiting class. And he was expected to be kind of the next Leonard Fournette, Darius Geis, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. John Emery is expected to come in and kind of be that next go-to guy. He was at least touted that way. And in his true freshman season, the 2019 championship season, he got some work. 39 carries, 188 yards, 4 touchdowns. Not a bad season for a true freshman in the slightest. And then, of course, 2020 had a really great season, 378 yards on 75 carries. Averaged 5 yards a carry. You're going to take 5 yards a carry from any running back. I don't care who you are, where you came from. But then we learned, John Emery Jr. was going through, some academic things and left him out of the 2021 season. He was suspended for the first game against Florida State in the 2022 season and came back in 2022 and had a solid year. The best year of his career at LSU, 375 yards on 76 carries and 6 touchdowns. I mean, John Emery, while he wasn't, a 800-yard rusher, 1,000-yard rusher in that season, he was still, a big part of that 2022 team that ultimately got to Atlanta and competed in the SEC championship game. But in 2023, it was Jaden Daniels was the run game. And if it wasn't Jaden Daniels, it was Logan Diggs. And of course, John Emery got some looks. He got some work. If it was not in the passing game, then it was in kind of short yardage or red zone situations. But John Emery Jr. tore his ACL in November. So his season was cut short. The average recovery time for an ACL is about 9 to 12 months. And I would lean more toward 12 months. We even see recovery taking up to 18, 20 to 24 months. You can get back to football work in, a span of 9 to 12, but you're not really the same until about a couple years later, when you really are not just medically 100%, but physically and strength-wise 100%. Ask Mason Smith how he was feeling in game 1 versus the end of the season. It takes time. So I don't think any of us viewed John Emery Jr. as a big focal point for the LSU team this season. Frankly, he wasn't even really a thought in my mind going into the season because I knew for the most part he wasn't going to be available as he rehabbed that ACL. But John Emery Jr., I believe, only has 1 year of eligibility remaining. So he intends to spend that final and 6th year elsewhere. He's been at LSU for the past 5 seasons. Of course, we know in that 2021 season, he was ineligible. So, but he's been here at LSU for the last 5 seasons. I don't blame John Emery Jr. for wanting to maybe get a fresh start and to finish out his career elsewhere if he wasn't going to be a big part of this offense. If he wants to play a larger role and he can't do that at LSU, then you're going to have to do it elsewhere. But I do wonder, what's the market for John Emery in the transfer portal? If you're going to take up a scholarship roster spot, why extend that to a running back that more than likely won't be either available and surely will not be 100% in September, October, or possibly even November? Look, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what John Emery's recovery looks like. But I would say with ACLs, we've seen enough of those in sports in general to know the recovery period and to know that expectations should be tempered. So I don't know what his market really looks like, but that's his problem. Let's focus on the LSU side of things. The spring transfer portal period can provide a lot of uneasiness and uncertainty because at the drop of a hat, any player could leave and enter the transfer portal, and you might be found, with your pants half down because you don't have another solution at that position. That player may have been viewed as, the backup or even the starter at that position, and they might decide, hey, look, I'm getting a couple extra mil elsewhere. I'm getting, a better NIL deal elsewhere. Or I just don't want to be here anymore. Either I stuck around through a coaching change because I wanted to feel it out. I felt it out and I don't like it. I want to go somewhere else. That happens. While I think it's less common in the spring transfer portal window than it is in the fall, just because in the spring transfer portal window, for the most part, starters are already established and starters might want to stay where they are going to be starters. But situations happen all the time. We're seeing it across the country. So there might be a position or a time of uneasiness, uncertainty, anxiety of what comes next, of who's playing that position. Do you have depth at that position? So on and so forth. And look, if you're feeling that way, I don't blame you. But looking at the players that have entered the transfer portal, none of those players that are leaving leave me with any sense of uncertainty or uneasiness or anxiety of who are playing those respective positions for LSU this upcoming season. Now, that is absolutely, positively zero disrespect to any of LSU's players that have entered the transfer portal, whether it's Jackson Howard or whether it's, a Kai Prian, the wide receiver that has entered the transfer portal, any of those players. That's no disrespect to them whatsoever. It's more so a testament to the roster that you have currently built. And it's more so a testament to the fact that you feel pretty solid about the starters at certain positions. Now, I still have concerns about running back. You might say, well, how are you not concerned about John Emery Jr. leaving, but you're concerned about running back? And it's because of the injury situation. That if John Emery Jr. isn't 100% to go game one and I need a running back game one, well, you can't help me. So it's the injury thing for me with John Emery Jr. But I think you could add some depth at running back. You absolutely need starters, not depth. You need starters at defensive tackle, and you need to find those players, and you need to create roster space for those players. But overall, at the positions of players that have left, that have entered the transfer portal, I think I can live with it. I think I can look at the roster and at those positions and the depth you have at those positions and the starters that you have in those positions and say, okay, I'm sorry that you're leaving and I'm sorry that this place isn't for you, but as for me and my roster and my team, as if, I'm speaking from kind of like the Brian Kelly perspective and the point of view, for me and my team, my roster, like I'm good. I'm taken care of at these positions. Things can change. Things might change 5 seconds from now, and I'm going to have to scrap this podcast and completely start over. But as of right now, I don't think that you should feel like LSU's roster is in a bad place because of the players that have left via the transfer portal. Now, defensive tackle, yes, I'm concerned about that. But that was a concern before the transfer portal window opened up. You're not losing any players that I viewed as foundational pieces for the 2024 squad. Coming up next, I want to pivot and I want to change gears to baseball because I think we need to spend some time talking about finally they got that proverbial monkey off of their back. They won the first SEC series of the season. We'll break it all down coming up next. All right, I want to tell you about Game Time. And now that we are about a month or so into the MLB season, I want to go to any and every Major League Baseball game that I can go to. I was just at a Braves game. I'm going to a St. Louis Cardinals game next weekend, and I am so excited. But the first place that I check to buy tickets, really for anything, but specifically Major League Baseball games, is Game Time. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. And the process is so simple and easy. When I bought tickets on Game Time for the Braves game that I went to a couple of weeks ago, I picked my seats, picked my tickets, a couple of buttons that I had to press to check out, and boom, instantly I had those tickets available on my phone. It was so simple. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. That code is LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, I also want to tell you about FanDuel. It is such a great time of the year. NBA playoffs are underway, NHL playoffs are underway, baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers will get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. $150 win or lose for new FanDuel customers. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and oh so easy to use. So I'm looking at the Stanley Cup playoffs on the NHL side of things. And I think for me, a safe bet anytime the Edmonton Oilers hit the ice is either Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl anytime goal scorers. I mean, that is truly the Batman and Robin of the NHL, one of the best 1-2 punches in the National Hockey League. And those two, one or the other, always seem to find their way into the net. But that's my take. Do it how you want to do it. Just do it with FanDuel. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, rolling along here on Locked On LSU. Thanks again for making us your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And also, I have to let y'all know that the Locked On NFL mock draft is available right now. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. We're only a couple of days away from the NFL draft, so get prepped and ready for it with Locked On NFL Mock Draft, available now on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, rolling along here, touched on some transfer portal stuff, and we'll continue to get into that throughout the rest of the week. Brian Smith, Locked On's official recruiting insider, will join us later this week. So we'll get some recruiting insight and also some players available in the portal. I might have ties to LSU and Louisiana and his coaching staff. So we'll touch base with Brian later on this week. But I want to transition into a few baseball thoughts that I had. Finally, it took 6 weeks, but LSU won their first SEC series of the season. Look, I talked about this last week. I said, this series against Missouri, it's really not negotiable. We had a question last week on a Mailbag Wednesday say, is there any hope for baseball? And I thought, look, honestly, I don't feel like there is. No, because the pitching is abysmal and the offense is non-existent and the defense is far too mistake prone. 5 weeks through SEC play and you hadn't won a series yet. I said the only hope that I would have is looking at the schedule throughout the rest of the season. And I understand that also includes the #1 team in the country in Texas A&M. But you had Missouri last weekend and then Auburn, 2 winnable series. I said, I have at least a shred of hope right now that you can win both of those series. You can even sweep both of those series. But if you can't win one or the other, even both of those series, my itty bitty teeny weeny little shred of hope is just completely evaporated and gone. If you can't beat those teams, you can't beat any team. Forget the postseason. Forget Hoover. You're not going. So LSU at least did what I said was a non-negotiable to at least have a little bit of hope for that team. And that was win a series at Missouri. It's hard to win on the road. Absolutely it is. But it was less to me about winning the series, period, and more to me about the way in which they did it. So LSU took the games on Friday and Sunday, dropped to Missouri on Saturday 8-7. Friday, they run rolled them in 7 innings, 12-1. Sunday, things got a little too interesting for comfort, but they ended up pulling away 6-2 and won the rubber match on Sunday. That's the reason why you play at least 7 innings, if not a full 9 innings, is because of what we saw LSU do late in the game on Sunday in the second half of the game. Some takeaways. What gave me more encouragement about this team, just based off of the process rather than the result. First and foremost, throughout the week, you got great to just good enough pitching. Friday night, Gage Jump got the start. Luke Holman was on Saturday. We'll get to Luke Holman. Gage Jump gave you a fantastic night. I don't know how you could have asked for more from Gage Jump on Friday. Full 7 innings. It was a 7-inning game since LSU did end up run rolling Missouri. Pitched 7 innings, gave up 3 hits, only 1 run, only 1 walk, and 14 strikeouts. Like, that is the kind of outing that you're going to want to get consistently, not just from Luke Holman, but from several other players and several other pitchers in your starting rotation and throughout your lineup and throughout your bullpen. Is you're going to need performances like that. I don't care if it's against Missouri, and I don't care if it's against the number 1 team in the country. That kind of pitching, that's going to win you games. I thought it was a great night from Gage Jump, hands down his best outing of the season so far. Sunday, Nate Ackenhausen didn't give you his best work, didn't give you a perfect game by any means, but the pitching was just good enough on Sunday to be able to secure a victory. Nate Ackenhausen gave you 4 innings, gave up 5 hits, 2 runs, only 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts. Not a perfect night, but not a bad night in the slightest. Griffin Herring came in relief of Nate Ackenhausen, and I think that was really the story of the game. And frankly, Griffin Herring has been an underratedly important storyline of this team throughout the season. He has been so stinking reliable. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that in LSU's five conference wins, 5 wins through 6 weeks, that Griffin Herring has appeared in 4 of them. He's been so reliable for you. And on Sunday, gave you 5 innings, only gave up 1 hit, 0 runs, only 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts. Like, that is, that's tough stuff right there. That is, I think, what we've expected from this pitching staff throughout the entirety of the season. And look, I don't need everyone to be Paul Skeens. No one's Paul Skeens. I don't need you to give me 7 shutout innings and 16 strikeouts on any given outing. I don't need that. But until this point, really, the only great pitching that you'd gotten was from Holman and then in Griffin Herring and in relief. So it was at least good to see that duo of Ackenhausen and Griffin Herring have another solid day, see a breakthrough from Gage Jump. And Luke Holman, on the other hand, he did not have a very good day on Saturday, but I think that's more the exception and not the rule. And I think that he deserves that benefit of the doubt based off of everything that he's given you the entirety of the season, not just in conference play. So you had good enough to great pitching over the weekend. And it wasn't just that, because we've seen this pitching staff have really solid outings. We've seen really good days from pitching staffs that was frankly just kind of poo-pooed away from either a slow offense or mistake-prone defense. That was another one of my takeaways from the weekend. And that's when I want to continue breaking down coming up next. What Jay Johnson called complementary baseball. We'll get into that coming up next after just a few words from our sponsors. Okay, I want to tell you about Monopoly Go because I've been told that I have just a little bit of a competitive side. I get it. I know. I admit it. I understand. I have a competitive side, but hey, we all do, right? And my competitive side is a huge fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. And it's a really fun and great twist on regular Monopoly, where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations. You build up amazing cities, and they also bring you big money. But the best part is, I love messing with my friends, and you can do that on Monopoly Go. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like in the classic Monopoly. But now I can also heist their vaults of riches for myself, and the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is just feeding into that competitive side there. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in timed tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in on the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or on Google Play. All right, really long here, locked on LSU. Continuing some of my takeaways from an LSU series win at Missouri this past weekend. You got solid pitching over the weekend. Yeah, great pitching from Gage Jump, great pitching from Griffin Herring, solid enough pitching from Nate Ackenhausen, and then not a great day from your pitching on Saturday, but overall, your pitching did enough to win you a series. But it wasn't just about the pitching. Like I mentioned, we've seen great outings on the mound before, but it still wasn't good enough because you can't just be good at one thing. You can't just be great on the mound and you can hardly even make contact with the ball. You can't be great on the mound and have mistake-filled, error-filled defense. That's not a formula for winning. Complementary baseball. You're good all the way around. You're a jack of all trades, don't necessarily have to be a master of one. We haven't seen LSU baseball be able to put all of the pieces together, at least until this past weekend. You've seen days where LSU is just everything is connecting at the plate. We've seen days where the pitching has been fantastic. We've seen days where certain things or certain individuals have really great days and shining moments, but they can't do it themselves. It has to be complementary. So it wasn't just the pitching. It was also the timely offense and the offense when you needed it. And Friday was a freaking hit parade. Everybody got some. It was like you were at Oprah, like you get a home run, you get a home run, you get a home run, you get a home run. Brady Neal kicked it off with a one-run bomb. Stephen Milam had another one-run homer of his own. Hayden Travinski with a big 3-run home run. Barrett Jones with a 2-run homer of his own. And then add on top of that, it wasn't just balls that left the park. It was also Ashton Larson with an RBI double, Paxton Kling with an RBI double. How about Paxton Kling stepping up at the plate this past weekend? My God, I've grown accustomed to Paxton Kling just being an automatic out, and I've grown accustomed to every time Paxton Kling steps up to the plate, I just hold my breath a little bit because I'm like, all right, great. Well, there's an out. There's out 3. But Paxton Kling was not a liability for you this past weekend. In fact, he wasn't just not a liability. He was a big asset for you over the weekend. So the good thing here was you were making contact with the ball. And I think one thing that's frustrated me throughout the season is the little offense that we've seen from LSU. So much of it is just 1-run home runs. Like, why can't we not hit home runs when there's actually guys on base? We were able to see that from Travinski and Bear Jones, 2-run and 3-run homers respectively. But you can't hit a multi-run home run if there's no one on base. Like, you don't like home runs are great and all, but you can win championships by hitting singles, doubles, and triples. And that's what we saw on Friday night. So you end up run-rolling Missouri on Friday, 12-1. Sunday, I thought, here we go again. In the first few innings, here we go again. This is the LSU baseball, unfortunately, that I know. And then just a switch flipped. And you ended up coming alive really in the second half of that game. So you didn't even have a hit until the 3rd inning when Milazzo singled. And then to the 4th inning, you went 3 up, 3 down. Like, great. Okay, well, 1 hit through 4 innings. Awesome. And then in the 5th inning, something shifted. Something changed. So Hayden Travinski and Michael Braswell, they both strike out. So now you're down 2 and you've got 2 outs. And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm like thinking in my head, okay, they're going to lose this game. They're going to lose this series. This sucks. And then Stephen Milan hits a triple. Alex Milazzo gets walked. So you've got runners on the corners. Paxton Kling is up to bat. And at this point, I'm still thinking like, oh gosh, here we go. 2 outs. Paxton Kling is up. You got 2 guys on, 2 more runners that you're going to leave in scoring position. Same stuff, different day. Except it wasn't. It was different stuff. It was different stuff from Paxton Kling. He ends up getting a triple because of just a bad throw from the shortstop. It would have been a double, ended up being a triple from an error. So Milam and Milazzo both end up scoring. So now the game is tied 2-2. So it's a tie ball game going into the 6th inning. And then Tommy White singles, Bear Jones doubles, Hayden Travinski and Michael Braswell are both walked. So that brings Tommy White home. Now you're up 3-2. And then in the 7th, Ashton Larson hits a dinger. And then in the 8th, you had a Pearson single, a Michael Braswell double, and then you were able to just continually build off of offensive momentum. Consistent offensive momentum, but rather consistent offensive production. That so many times so far this season, you can finally you feel like it's coming. You're like, okay, finally, like we're getting a couple of hits. There's guys on base. And then it's almost like a needle in a balloon. And all of the momentum just goes away. You leave guys on base. You're not able to capitalize off of the singles and the doubles and the triples. But I felt like Sunday was, I guess Friday and Sunday were really the first times this season that was palpable. The offensive momentum was palpable. They were building off of one another. Home runs are great and all, but what we saw Sunday, when it's plate discipline here and you get walked there, when it's a double here and a single there, once you piece those things together, that's when it really starts to click. So was this a breakthrough? I don't know. I hope, but frankly, I don't know. We'll see. You got Auburn coming up this weekend. So are you able to continue to build off of that next weekend? Did you figure something out this past weekend? Or was it just a bad team that you were able to beat? We'll see. How much more encouragement do I have after this series? I would say a little bit, but you got a lot of work to do. You have a lot of work to do. All the experts say about 13 conference wins will get you into the postseason. Well, now you're at 5. You have, math is hard, 12 conference games remaining. You need to get to 13. You need to win 8 of your next 12 to make it to the postseason. That's not impossible, but it's going to be tough based off of what we've seen from this team so far. But do I have a little bit of hope? Yeah, I have a little bit of hope. I have a hope that they at least figured something out this past weekend and they can kind of feel the vibe and the mojo going forward. That's going to do it for me today. Thank you for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up in tomorrow's edition of Locked On LSU, we'll get into your questions on a Mailbag Wednesday. All that coming up next here on Locked On LSU.